A fair fight is a fight you can lose. That was one of the many, many lessons that I learned from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You see, the Turtles, they were ninjas. They weren't warriors going out there to fight in the bright sunlight. They weren't heroes. They were ninjas. They fight in the background. They fight with overwhelming force, and they're there to get a mission done. They're not there for the glory of the fight. They're there to get the mission done. And in many iterations of the Turtles, one of the lessons that Master Splinter gives to them, that if something's worth fighting for, it's worth going all out for. And there's a difference between fighting dishonorably and fighting with a justified, disproportionate response. So, the United States Marines, the Ninja Turtles, they go out there, they do what needs to get done. They want to have a completely unfair fight. They want to attack the enemy with an overwhelming advantage. They want to win the fight. They want to achieve the goal. Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today, we are going to take a look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 97, spoiler free, and oh my goodness, I needed this chapter. This chapter was such an emotional boon to me. I was feeling kind of down, and one of the powers that Matsumoto has is to make the manga fan feel emotions. What do I mean by that? Let's talk about the law of diminishing returns. Every time you experience something, the next time you experience it, your reaction to that stimulus is going to be lesser. You get used to certain pains. You get used to certain fears. Not so much with pain, you just learn to endure it. But with things like fear and excitement, the intensity of the reaction ebbs. This is why people talk about new love and old love. New love is intense, and you're never going to experience that same first falling in love sensation. It grows into something new and better, but the intensity of being in love, most scientists estimate that it wears off after 18 months. Fear. The first time you go on a roller coaster, the first time you ride a cable ride, the first time you get on a horse, you experience this intense surge of emotion that you will never experience again. You always remember your first time is a very generic statement because it applies so universally. Your first kiss, the first time you get behind the wheel of a car, the first time you pet a really big dog. It sticks in your brain because that was the time when the emotion was at its most intense. Every single time after that, you get the emotion to a lesser degree. There are a few exceptions to this rule, but in general, that's the rule. Now, this is why manga is so famous for power scaling. This is why at the midpoint of the original Dragon Ball series, Goku was on par with Krillin and Yamcha. And as the series goes on, his power scales up and up and up. And every time he has to fight a new opponent, he has to scale up the power level to get anything approaching the same excitement out of the audience. The power scaling in manga and anime is a direct result of the law of diminishing returns. You don't get the same emotional return on an investment the next time you see it. And by the time you get to the primary audience for Kaiju number 8, which is the older manga fans, you have a bunch of fans whose emotional responses are deadened by this law of diminishing returns. We just don't respond as intensely to the same stimuli that we once did. Now, many mangaka counter this by going for bigger and badder. And we've already seen a little bit of power creep in Kaiju number 8, but not nearly as much. Because if you are only relying on the intensity of an exciting moment to get your emotional response, you are subject to the law of diminishing returns. But what makes certain artists immune to this, what makes art stand the test of time is when it reflects reality in a more way. When you're not just going for a surface level emotion, but when the artist reaches out and communicates a real life scenario that the reader or the consumer of the art has also experienced. When the artist reaches out and says, there is an experience within me that I, as a human being, have experienced. And then that can resonate with the reader. And this is something that exists outside of simple biochemical stimulation. The resonance of one human reaching out and realizing that another human has experienced the same thing that they have. And I think that that is what Matsumoto is doing here. We have all experienced moments like the first few pages of this chapter, where what we expected has gone wrong. What we feared is happening. We have this terrible bleep moment where we're facing our own mortality, the defeat of our plans. And that is something that we live with on a day-to-day basis. And it is not the flashiest of emotions. It is, in fact, a very subdued emotion, but it is one that stays with us a lot longer than these flashy Dragon Ball moments because it is very real. We all have a deep motivation that drives us. And Matsumoto is here presenting a character being driven by a very understandable deep motivation. And even though it is very different in detail from the deep motivations that drive us personally, there is something about it that is real, that speaks to the human condition, and that resonates. And so we jaded 30, 40-something manga fans who have been watching manga and anime since Pokemon first came out on US airwaves, we can still resonate with this manga, even though the law of diminishing returns has long since dulled our ability to respond to the flashier fight scenes. So we have that. The chapter starts with an bleep moment that fades in where the shock fades out and then blossoms into dread. You have a sensation of just being crushed under the weight of the world, that realization that I've done my job. I solved this problem, but it just keeps coming back. And I have to, being an adult, I have to get up and go face it every single day. And you go and do it because you're an adult. But this is why adulting is hard, where you have to get up and go do the same thing every single day, whether it's go to your job or run your own business or just go to school. That sense of, I'm going to have to get up and do this every day. Very real, very resonant. And then there's just these panels that evoke this sense of, this is so much bigger than me. What can I possibly do to solve this problem? And we've all felt that too. There are real problems in the world that we cannot, as individuals, solve. And I just think that that is what makes this a work of art. That's what sets Matsumoto apart from other manga creators. Matsumoto is reaching deep into his own humanity, finding those fears, those doubts that resonate within him, in his very soul, and he is pouring those onto the page. And that reaches out up through the ink, across the panels, and resonates with our own souls. And I am really excited to do my full spoilers review. Again, this chapter just blazed past, let's see, how many pages was it? 25 pages. So slightly, I think 25 is the exact average since we switched to the bi-weekly schedule. And I will note one thing. If you have been aware of the primary inspiration, if you had a pie chart of all of the inspirations that went into this manga, there is one that stands out beyond it. The primary inspiration is, for this manga, was incredibly obvious on page 14. And I'm just really obvious on page 14. And I just found that rather amusing. And again, I do suspect that a major component of what went into the creation of this manga was fury and spite, and Matsumoto wanting to take the mistakes of one of his predecessors and do it right this time. So I'm really looking forward to how Matsumoto wraps up this arc. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Am I just reading too much into what is, after all, just a manga? Or is Matsumoto really creating great long-lasting art here? Hit that like and subscribe button. Tell me what you think in the comments, and peace out, my wonderful viewers. Do you love awesome science fiction books? Of course you do. If you check out the links below the video, you can get yourself a copy of Comedy or Tragedy. Humans Are Weird. I have the data. Humans Are Weird. We took a vote, and Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out are the 3 comedy short story books available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo by Rakuten, Google Play. There's even some copies at Powell's Books, the famous used bookstore in Portland, Oregon. Dying Embers, dragons, aliens, and things that go boom in the night, and soon Flying Sparks. More dramatic, traditional science fiction novels are also available at Amazon. Flying Sparks is still on the pre-order page. If you want a copy, you can email me by contacting the website to pre-order yourself a copy. It's still being edited. So check out the links below the video to get yourself a copy of some wonderful science fiction.